Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command thee, O Spirit. Elon, I, the Tetragrammaton, the Lord God Most High, I do exercise thee, and do powerfully command.
In the dark shadows, in the white cold, fearlessly we search for knowledge new and old. We drink the strong spirits and read the ancient tomes. The order of the Abracast. We are the brave and the bold. Occult, history, conspiracy, and violence.
Hello, welcome to the Abracast. I'm your host, John Towers. So I've been emailing back and forth with some listeners recently about the series that we've been doing, the Western Civilization series, or the end of the Western Civilization series, or the Defending Western Civilization series. And I mentioned the last episode, or maybe 2 episodes ago, or maybe even 3 episodes ago, about, buying some extra Band-Aids, buying some extra beans, and buying some extra bullets. And so there was a short little 2 or 3 discussions going on about prepping. And look, I'm not like a prepper. Like, I don't have a generator tied into my house. At least I would say that I wasn't a prepper. But anyhow, it started getting me thinking about this old book, and I mentioned it probably a million times on the podcast, and I guess eventually I figured that we would get to it at some point in time. And with what's going on in the world right now, I was like, what is the better time than right now to talk about The Art of War by Sun Tzu? So this Chinese general wrote The Art of War like fucking 2,000 years ago. And in the 80s, the corporate raiders and all this, they sort of resurrected the art of war. They were like applying it to their business practices and ethics and all of this stuff, with all the beating the competition, seeing the competition, and envisioning it as an enemy army, or envisioning your competitor as, the general on the other side of the field. And so, it comes back around every now and again. Famously, The House of Pain has a lyric about it. I believe it goes something like, I brought a gun too, so you'll never come to. No. I read Sun Tzu. And I brought a gun too, so you... I don't know. I should have maybe looked at that beforehand. Anyhow, this this 1,000-year-old, 2,000-year-old text is obviously in the public domain, and I'm actually reading from one of my oldest books. I've been dragging this book around with me since fucking high school. It was originally this was originally published in '83. The guy that wrote what did he write? The guy that wrote the one thing everyone will know. Shogun. The guy who wrote Shogun edited this and did a foreword to it. So this is the book that we're reading from. And I love it. It's funny because I have like multiple years of different highlights going through it, and it's totally smashed. I don't know how it got wet or by what substance it is wet, but it's all inks runny on it. The cover's all fucked up. The pages are all wavy. I mean, this book has been soaked by something, and I don't recall what it could have been. Maybe it was gin, or maybe I submerged it in whiskey at some point. Something, I don't know. But so we're going to be talking about Sun Tzu's chapter 1 here in the Art of War, called Laying Plans. I do have my Vessel of the Art with me, and it does have the formula for the weapon of mass distraction, my Jin Jihad in here. Oh, it's manna from heaven. Sun Tzu said, "The art of war is of vital importance to the state. It is a matter of life and death, a road either to safety or to ruin. Hence, under no circumstance can it be neglected. The art of war is governed by 5 constant factors, all of which need to be taken into account. They are moral law, heaven, earth, the commander, method, and discipline. The moral law causes people to be in complete accord with their ruler, so that they will follow him regardless of their lives, undismayed by danger. Heaven signifies night and day, cold and heat times in the season. Earth compromises of distance, great and small, danger, security, open ground, and narrow passes. The chances of life and death. The commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. By method and discipline are to be understood by the marshalling of the army and its proper subdivisions and gradations of rank among the officers, and then the maintenance of roads which supply may reach the army and the control of military expenditure. These 5 factors should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious, and he who knows them not will fail. Therefore, when seeking to determine your military conditions, make your decisions on the basis of comparison. On this wise, which of the 2 sovereigns is imbued with the moral law? Which of the 2 generals has the most ability? With whom lie the advantages derived from heaven and earth? On which side is discipline most rigorously enforced?" So probably in today's parlance, I mean, we can keep moral law as it is. That's fine. Heaven, we would talk about maybe the weather. Earth, we would talk about terrain. The commander, that's we can leave that as it is. Method and discipline. Method would be rank, or would be organizational structure. It would be logistics. We've mentioned on the show before the term or the saying that tactics is for amateurs, logistics are for professionals, or something along those lines. So it would be org structure and logistics, and then of course discipline. Discipline, I would add training. These 5 factors should, who am I to tell fucking General Sun Tzu? These 5 factors should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious, and he who knows them not will fail. I already said that part. Skipping ahead here, Tu Mu alludes to the remarkable story of Cao Cao, AD 155 through 220, who was such a strict disciplinarian that once, in accordance with his own severe regulations against injury to standing crops, he condemned himself to death for having allowed his horse to stray into a field of corn. However, in lieu of losing his head, he was persuaded to satisfy his sense of justice just by cutting off his hair. When you lay down a law, see to it that it is not disobeyed. If it is disobeyed, the offender must be put to death. Which army is stronger? On each side are officers and men more highly trained. In which army is there more absolute certainty that merit will be properly rewarded and misdeeds summarily punished? By means of these 7 considerations, I can forecast victory or defeat. The general who hearkens to my counsel will act upon it. Who act upon it will conquer. Let such a one retained in command. The general who hearkens not my counsel, nor acts upon it, will suffer defeat. Lest one be dismissed. But remember, while heeding the profit of my counsel, avail yourself also from any helpful circumstances over and beyond the ordinary rules, and modify your plans accordingly. All warfare is based on deception. Hence, when able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must seem inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe that we are far away. When we are far away, we must make him believe that we are near. Hold out baits to entice the enemy, feign disorder, and crush him. When he is secure at all points, be prepared for him. If he is superior strength, evade him. If your opponent is choleric temper, means easily agitated, seek to irritate him. Pretend to be weak, that he may grow arrogant. If he is taking his ease, give him no rest. If his forces are united, separate them. Attack him where he is unprepared. Appear where you are not expected. The general who wins a battle makes many calculations in his temple before the battle is fought. The general who loses a battle makes but few calculations beforehand. Thus do many calculations lead to victory, and few calculations lead to defeat. How much more no calculations at all. It is attention to this point that I can foresee who is likely to win or lose. It's hilarious to me. I haven't read this book in a long time. Obviously, I've told you the state of this book, what I've done to it. But just when I used to work, I used to make a living doing security work. I worked for a company who had contracts with Major League Baseball, the NFL, nationwide companies. We would go and work special events in different states. Super Bowl, we would go and be flown out for 2 weeks for Super Bowls and all this kind of stuff. And it's funny just how much I must have taken this book to heart when I've read it over and over again. Specifically, the thing that I want to point out is the pretend to be weak thing. Oh man. Anyhow, Section 2, Chapter 2, on waging war. In the operations of war, where there are in the field 1,000 swift chariots, 10,000 heavy chariots, and 100,000 mail-clad soldiers with provisions enough to carry them 1,000 li. 2.78 modern li make 1 mile. The length may have varied slightly since Sun Tzu's time. Back to it. The expenditure at home and at the front, including the entertainment of guests, small items such as glue and paint, and sums spent on chariots and armor will reach the total of 1,000 ounces of silver per day. Such is the cost of raising an army of 100,000 men. When you engage in actual fighting, if victory is long in coming and the men's weapons grow dull and their ardor will be dampened, if you lay siege to a town, you will exhaust your strength. And if the campaign is protracted, the resource of the state will not be equal to the strain. Never forget, when your weapons are dulled, your ardor dampened, your strength exhausted, and your treasure spent, other chieftains will spring up to take advantage of your extremity. Then no man, however wise, will be able to avert the consequences that must ensue. So here, let's talk about this as it is sort of presented in our current events. You know, all this shit in the Ukraine happened after the United States totally botched and showed all the weakness in Afghanistan. We couldn't have projected a message of weakness any clearer than what we did in Afghanistan. And right after that is when Russia started making all these weird troop movements and amassing their border. So if you look weak, you're going to get challenged. You know, that's why I'm terrified to see what's going to happen to Hong Kong, Taiwan. Also, this bit about how laying siege will exhaust your strength. And, you know, this is one of those things where, you know, people, the modern, I don't know how you put it, like the conventional thinking is that this thing that's dragging out in Ukraine happened because Putin was gambling that it was going to go real fast, that he was going to achieve victory very quickly. And he was probably a little nervous when all the police stations just start handing guns out to the Ukrainians because he was going to get a lot more. He wound up getting a lot more resistance than people think that he was maybe bargaining for. And the longer you're in there, the more strain you're putting on your supply chain. You know, moving beans, Band-Aids, and bullets up to the front, and allowing your enemy, or your, you know, in this case it would be the Ukrainian army or those Nazi super soldiers or whatever that they got over there, being able to dig in and fortify their positions more. You're just causing all this problem. So, harking back to the first chapter, it seems like Putin maybe should have made more calculations. Let's not make that move. Let's make our calculations now while we have the chance. Back to it on waging war. Thus, though we have heard of stupid haste in war, cleverness has never been associated with long delays. In all history, there is no instance of a country having benefited from prolonged warfare. Only one who knows the disastrous effects of a long war can realize the supreme importance of rapidity in bringing it to a close. It's the only one who is thoroughly acquainted with the evils of war and who can thoroughly understand the profitable way of carrying it on. The skillful general does not raise a second levy. Neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Once a war is declared, it will not waste precious time in waiting for reinforcements, nor will he turn his army back from fresh supplies, but crosses the enemy's frontier without delay. The value of time, that is, being a little ahead of your opponent, has counted for more than either numerical superiority or the nicest calculations with regard to commissariat. And part of this would be the idea of um, initiative. You know, like the D&D nerds, when a situation presents itself where you might be doing battle, you have to roll for initiative. Who gets to go first? In the real world, I guess they'd be called initiative too in the real world, but you know, it comes to part of your planning. You want a couple things, and speed and violence of action are one of the things that you want. This could be applied to the Ukrainian situation when all the weird troop movements started, and they were amassing their troops along the border. They weren't hiding. Everybody knew where they were. They just didn't know why they were there. And then they waited, and they waited, they waited, and so, you know, in some ways they lost the initiative because people were able to, you know, start to get the fuck out of Dodge, or start to, you know, figure out what their plans, etc. Bringing war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus, the army will have food enough for its needs. Poverty from the state exchequer causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes the people to be impoverished. On the other hand, the proximity of an army causes prices to go up. When high prices cause people's substance to be drained away. When the substance is drained away, they will be afflicted by heavy exactions. With this loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare and their incomes dissipated. And at the same time, government expenses for broken chariots, worn out horses, breastplates, helmets, bows, arrows, spears, shields, protective mantles, draft oxen, and heavy wagons will amount to almost half its total revenue. A wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. One cartload of the enemy's provisions is an equivalent to 20 of one's own. It's likewise a single, this pickle unit of measurement that's about 133.33 pounds. That's very specific. On his provender is equivalent to 20 of his own store. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger. For them to perceive the advantage of defeating the enemy, they must also have their rewards. Thus, when you capture spoils from the enemy, they must be used as rewards, so that all your men may have a keen desire to fight, each on his own account. Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flags should be substituted for those of the enemy, and the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called usage the conquered foe, to augment one's own strength. In war, then, let your great objective be victory, not lengthy campaigns. Thus, it may be known that the leader of the armies is the arbiter of the people's fate, a man on whom it depends whether the nations shall be in peace or in peril. The Sheathed Sword. Part 3. The Sheathed Sword. To fight and conquer in all your battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists of breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Sun Tzu says, maybe it is in this part, I'm not exactly sure, but he says famously, or memorably, at least for me, that war is politics. It's maybe we'll get to it. In the practical art of war, the best thing of all is to take the enemy's country whole and intact. To shatter and destroy it is not so good. So too it is better to capture an army entire than to destroy it. To capture a regiment, a detachment, or a company entire than to destroy them. Thus, the highest form of generalship is to balk at the enemy's plans. The next best is to prevent junction of the enemy's army. The next, in order to attack the enemy's army in the field. And the worst policy of all is to besieged wall cities, because the preparation of mantlets, movable shelters, and various implements of war will take up to 3 whole months, and the piling up of mounds over against the walls will take 3 more months. The general, unable to control his irritation, will launch his men to the assault like swarming ants, with the results that 1/3 of his men are slain while the town still remains untaken. Such are the disastrous effects of a siege. The skillful leaders subdue the enemy's troops without any fighting. He captures their cities without laying siege to them. He overthrows their kingdoms without lengthy operations in the field. With his forces intact, he disputes the mastery of the empire, and thus, without losing a man, his triumph is complete. This is the method of attacking by stratagem, of using the sheathed sword. It is the rule in war, if our forces are 10 and the enemy's 1, to surround him, if 5 to 1, to attack him, if twice as numerous, to divide our army into 2, 1 to meet the enemy in the front and 1 to fall upon his rear. If he replies to the frontal attack, he may be crushed from behind. If to the rearward attack, he will be crushed to the front. If equally matched, we can offer battle. If slightly inferior in numbers, we can avoid the enemy. If quite unequal in every way, we can flee from him. Though an obstinate fight may be made by a small force, in the end, it must be captured by the larger force. The general is the bulwark of the state. The bulwark is strong. In all points, the state will be strong. If the bulwark is defective, the state will be weak. Let's go, Brandon. There are 3 ways in which the sovereign can bring misfortune upon his army. By commanding the army to advance or to retreat, being ignorant of the fact that it cannot obey. This is called hobbling the army. Let's go, Brandon. The attempt to govern an army in the same way he administers the kingdom, being ignorant of the conditions that obtain in an army. This causes restlessness in the soldier's mind. Humanity and justice are the principles on which to govern a state, but not an army. Opportunism and flexibility, on the other hand, are military rather than civic virtues. I love it. Opportunism and flexibility are military rather than civic virtues. I don't even have that highlighted. What the by employing the officers of his army without discrimination, through ignorance of the military principle of adaptation to circumstance, this shakes the confidence of the soldiers. Summa Cha'an, about 100 BC, added to this section. If a general is ignorant of the principle of adaptability, he must not be entrusted with the position of authority. The skillful employer of men will employ the wise man, the brave man, the covetous man, and the stupid man. For the wise man delights in establishing his merit. The brave man likes to show his courage of action. The covetous man is quick at seizing advantage. And the stupid man has no fear of death. When the army is restless and distrustful, trouble is sure to come from the other feudal princes. This is simply bringing anarchy into the army and flinging victory away. So like, if your army doesn't trust you, I mean, it's hilarious. Thus, we may know that there are 5 essentials for victory. He will win who knows when to fight and when not to fight. This is choose your battles wisely. He will win who knows how to handle both superior and inferior forces. If you are facing a superior force, you run from them is what he says. Inferior forces, you crush them. He will win whose army is animated by the same spirit throughout all its ranks. He will win who prepared himself, waits to take the enemy unprepared. What's not in there is like if you do a gigantic press conference and then just tell your enemy everything you're going to do and everything that you're going to let them get away with without punishing them or facing them. That's not in this part. I must have skipped past that line. He will win who has the military capacity and is not interfered with by the sovereign. So this is trust your if you're the king should trust the general and not interfere with him. If you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. But if you know neither the enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. That's a nice sound bite to chew on, isn't it? Chapter 4, Tactics. Oh, I like this one. Look, probably 19-year-old Dr. John Towers highlighted this. This is really good. The good fighters of old first put themselves beyond the possibility of defeat and then waited for an opportunity of defeating the enemy. To secure ourselves against defeat lies in our own hands. But the opportunity of defeating the enemy is provided by the enemy himself. Hence the saying, one may know how to conquer without being able to do it. Security against defeat implies defensive tactics. The ability to defeat the enemy means taking the offensive. Standing on the defensive indicates insufficient strength. Attacking a super abundance of strength. The general who is skilled in defense hides his most secret recesses of the earth. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven. Thus, on the one hand, we have the ability to protect ourselves, and on the other, to gain victory that is complete. To see victory only when it is within the ken of the common herd is not an acme of excellence, nor is the same acme of excellence if you fight and conquer the whole empire. Say, well done. True excellence is to plan secretly, move surreptitiously, and to foil the enemy's intentions, to balk his schemes. So that the last day may be won without shedding a drop of blood. To lift an autumn hair is no sign of a great strength. To see sun and moon is no sign of sharp sight. To hear the noise of thunder is not of a quick ear. The ancients called a clever fighter is one who not only wins but excels at winning with ease. But his victories bring him neither reputation for wisdom nor credit for courage, for inasmuch as they are gained over circumstances, they have not come to light. The world at large knows nothing of them. And he therefore wins no reputation for wisdom, inasmuch as the hostile state submits before there have been any bloodshed. He receives no credit for courage. He wins his battles by making no mistakes. Making no mistakes is what establishes the certainty of victory, for it means conquering an enemy that is already defeated. Hence, the skillful fighter puts himself in a position that makes defeat impossible. What does not miss the moment for defeating the enemy. Thus, it is that in war, a victorious strategist only seeks battle after the victory has been won, whereas he who is destined to defeat first fights and afterwards looks for victory. Victorious army opposed to a routed one is a pound's weight placed on a scale against a single grain. The onrush of conquering force is like the bursting of pent-up waters into a chasm 1,000 fathoms deep. The consummate leader cultivates the moral law and strictly adheres to the method and discipline, but this is in his power to control success. So much for tactics. The control of a large force in the same... Chapter 5. Energy. The control of a large force in the same in principle as to control of a few men. It is merely a question of dividing up their numbers. Fighting with a large army under your command is no wise different than fighting with a small one. It is merely a question of instituting signs and signals. This is hilarious. I swear to God, before I decided to do this, I've been teaching my wife patrol hand signals. Like, we're going to Walmart, and I'm like, we get out of the car, and I like, stop. This is the rally point. You see the door. We will move forward in two-column formation. So that it just tickled me. I'm sorry. Anyhow, it's my goal to be able to go through a whole day without actually talking to each other. We can just sit there and do hand signals. That's what I mean, everybody. We need to start getting prepared for this shit. To ensure that your whole host may withstand the... I don't know how she puts up with me. I ask the same thing all the time. To ensure that your whole host may withstand the brunt and the enemy's attack and remain unshaken, use maneuvers, direct the indirect in all fighting, and direct the method may be used for joining battle. But direct methods will be needed in order to secure victory. Indirect tactics, efficiently applied, are as inexhaustible as heaven and earth, unending as the flow of the rivers and the streams, like the sun and the moon, but they end but to begin anew. Like the four seasons, they pass away to return once more. There are not more than 5 musical notes, yet the combination of these 3 give rise to more melodies that can ever be heard. They are not more than 5 primary colors, but the combination, they produce more hues than can ever be seen. There are not more than 5 cardinal tastes: sour, acrid, salt, sweet, bitter, yet the combinations of them yield more flavors than can ever be tasted. In battle, however, there are not more than 2 methods of attack: the direct and the indirect. Yet these 2 in combination give rise to an endless series of maneuvers. The direct and the indirect lead on to each other in turn. It is like moving in a circle. You never come to an end, but we can exhaust the possibilities of their combination. The onset of troops is like a rush of a torrent that will roll stones along its course. The quality of decision is like the well-timed swoop of a falcon that enables it to strike and destroy its victim. Therefore, the good fighter will be terrible on his onset and prompt in his decisions. This again can be initiative and violence of action. So direct action is pretty self-explanatory. It's a raid, patrol, a line. You're directly acting on something in like a military space. But the best way that I can describe indirect action would be like what we do. So the best way that I can kind of explain indirect action would be what the United States does for like regime changes and funding and supporting like color revolutions, like the Arab Spring and all of this stuff is indirect action. It's something that we're just sort of pulling the strings on. It's literally, it's what we did in Ukraine that might have gotten this whole fucking thing started. So indirect action isn't necessarily, it's not necessarily a tactic that boots on the ground are doing. It's something that, is happening, behind the scenes. Maybe a proxy war might be a good way to describe an indirect action. If we're not involved in it, Back to the book. Every energy may be likened to the bending of a crossbow, decision to releasing of the trigger. Amid the turmoil and tumult of battle, there may be seeming disorder and yet no real disorder at all. Amid confusion and chaos, your array may be without head or tail, yet it will be proof against defeat. Simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness postulates strength. Hiding under the cloak of disorder is simply a question of subdivision. Concealing courage under a show of timidity proposes a fund of latent energy. Masking strength with weakness is to be effected by tactical disposition. Cheng Yu relates the following anecdote of Liu Pang, the first Han Emperor, 256 through 195 BC. Wishing to crush the Hisang Nu, he sent out 2 spies to report on their condition. But the Hisang Nu forewarned carefully concealed and able-bodied men and well-fed horses, and only allowed infirm soldiers and emaciated cattle to be seen. The result was that the spies, one and all, recommended to the emperor to deliver his attack. Lu Qing alone opposed them, saying, "When 2 countries go to war, they are naturally inclined to make ostentatious display of their strength, and yet our spies have seen nothing but old age and infirmity. This is surely some ruse on the part of the enemy, and would be unwise for us to attack." The emperor, however, disregarded this advice, and he fell into the trap and found himself surrounded at Potang. Thus, one who is skilled at keeping the enemy on the move maintains deceitful appearance, according to which the enemy will act. He sacrifices something that the enemy must snatch at it by holding out baits. He keeps them on the march. Then, with the body of picked men, he lies in wait for him. In 351 BC, the Chai state, being at war with Wei, sent Tian Chai and Sun Pin against the general Pang Chuan, and who happened to be a deadly personal enemy of the latter. Sun Pin said, "The Qi state has a reputation of cowardice, and therefore our adversaries despise us. And let us turn this circumstance to account." Accordingly, when the army had crossed the border into Wei territory, he gave orders to show 100,000 fires on the first night and 50 on the next. Oh, clever. He's feigning a a retreat, or he's feigning desertions. On the night after that, only 20,000 Peng Chuang pursued them hotly, saying to himself, I knew these men of Qi were cowards. Their numbers have already fallen away by more than half. In his retreat, Sun Pin came to a narrow defile. I think it's like a defilade. It's like a natural terrain feature in which he calculated that his pursuers would reach after dark. Here, he had tree stripped from its bark and inscribed upon the words, under this tree shall Peng Chuai die. Then, as night began to fall, he placed a strong body of archers in an ambush nearby. With orders to shoot directly if they saw a light. Later on, Peng Chuai arrived at the spot and noticed the tree. He struck a light in order to read what was written on it, and his body was immediately riddled by a volley of arrows, and his whole army thrown into confusion. The clever combatant looks to the effect of combined energy and does not require too much from individuals, takes individual talent to account, and he uses each man according to his capabilities. He does not demand perfection from the untalented. When he utilizes combined energy, his fighting men become, as it were, like rolling logs or stones. For it is the nature of a log or stone to remain motionless on level ground, but to move when on a slope it is four-cornered, to come to a standstill, but if round-shaped, to go rolling down. Thus the energy developed by good fighting men as a momentum of a round stone rolled down the mountain thousands of feet in height. So much for the subject of energy. All right. I'm Dr. John Towers. This has been the Abracast. Thank you guys for listening. We'll finish up the Art of War. We'll do it here. We'll do it here real soon. I think it's interesting to check it sort of against what's going on in the world, or spelling out like, wait, I mean, I skipped over. I had a brilliant Star Wars thing like, oh, this is what they did in Star. I can't remember what it is. Anyhow, I'm John. This is the Abracast. This is my vessel of the art. And as you can hear, maybe it's empty, so I got to go remedy that. So I'll let Hilla take over.
Thank you for listening, and we hope that you enjoyed the show. Please send an email or find us on social media and let us know what you think about the show. We would appreciate it if you would give us a 5-star rate and review wherever you find your favorite podcasts. You can find Stigmata Studios, graphic, novels, and comic books. Take control of your destiny. Understand your past. Put your present in context and know your future with a twist. Check out the Abracast Tarot Card Deck. Your body is your temple, so let's make sure you got a badass t-shirt on it. Variety of cool occult themed t-shirts and other merch like stickers, wall art, mugs, and more. Welcome to the Red Archive. Get access to over 50 hours of archived episodes, more bonus audio, additional exclusive content. All this for only $1 a month. Are you interested in the occult, history, conspiracy, and violence? Learn more at Abracast.com.